This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
When betting player props, I am very much someone who wants to find the best value. And a lot of times, best value is in unders. And it's not as fun to bet unders, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do in order to try to make some money and have some fun watching these games. Now, I still like betting overs more. I still got that that fan in me that wants to root for something rather than against something. And so when I get a game where I feel emboldened to focus on some overs and feel pretty good about them, that to me is pretty exciting. And honestly, that's what we get for tonight between the Ravens and the Lions on Monday Night Football, because we've got a high total, tight enough spread, and my model thinks that both those numbers are around where they should be, which gives us a green light, I think, to be pretty aggressive in the prop market. So for today, we're going to dive in to what my model is saying about this game, letting you know which props I like at FanDuel Sportsbook and at SGP that I like as well. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, here to preview the Lions at the Ravens on Monday Night Football, laying out my favorite bets at FanDuel Sportsbook for tonight's game. We're going to dive in and get you set for tonight's game in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast. We are here Monday through Friday during football season with college football on Wednesdays. Tomorrow, I'll go through game by game for all week 4 NFL games, laying out my models, spread, and total predictions for each of those games, which bets I like early on. NFL Thursday, the game by game preview, and player props on Friday, all right here in the exact same feed. And of course, all these shows do go up on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page as well. So if you're watching YouTube, leave us a thumbs up there, but also subscribe and turn on notifications, but also subscribe to the podcast feed, Covering the Spread, wherever you get your podcasts. FanDuel's getting you ready for kickoff with an offer you won't want to miss. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5, and if it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style, FanDuel has you covered. The NFL season is finally here. Only question is, are you ready to play? Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Help Oregon, Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look now at this game. Ravens and the Lions at FanDuel Sportsbook. We've got the Ravens here by 5.5, and the total in this game is 53.5. And the total has been increasing throughout the week. It was 51.5 earlier on. It has inched up throughout the week. I think that movement is correct because I've got this total at 54.8. So very high total for me. Got the Ravens here by 3.9. And I do see some value in the Lions money line. I'm not super inclined to take it because I think I have to test this. This is my job this week, is testing whether or not my model overvalues indoor teams going outdoors. I think it might. So I want to test that this week to make sure I'm not doing so. And until I get a better read on whether I am overvaluing teams like the Lions, Texans, et cetera, when they're on the road and outdoors, I kind of want to hold off. So to me, don't want to dive too far into either the spread or total for this game. I think the total has gone up enough where it's no longer a value, and a bit wary of the value I do see in the Lions for this game. What it does tell me, though, is that we can expect points in this game. We can feel pretty good about the way this game should go, and I think that we'll see points on both sides personally. Unfortunately, that does not translate to a ton of value in the touchdown market at FanDuel Sportsbook. I am like close to value on a bunch of guys. I am close to value on Derrick Henry. I have a minus 210 to score. Jahmyr Gibbs, I have at minus 220. He's minus 130 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Zay Flowers, I think I have at plus 110. He's exactly a plus 110. And then Jamison Williams, he's extended a bit. He was plus 240, now plus 250. I have him at plus 240. So maybe you could talk yourself into one of those guys if you're higher on them than I am. Again, JMO, Zay Flowers, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Derrick Henry all close for me to being values. And Amon-Ra St. Brown was earlier on this week too, is no longer at plus 105. So maybe if you're higher on them than I am, you could talk yourself into a touchdown score because we do expect a lot of points in this game. I just don't think there's any value on those specific players. So I'm going to stay away from the touchdown market as things stand. If we see players, we saw JMO lengthen a bit. If others lengthen a bit more, maybe I'll dive in then. But as things stand, no big values in the touchdown score market that I'm willing to fire on as of right now. I do, though, think that we, again, have the green light to fire on some player props and potentially towards some fairly aggressive markets. When doing so, I want to buy into players whose roles I think are undervalued with the way they've been utilized so far this year. And the best example of that in my eyes is Jahmyr Gibbs, because we had this question coming into the year of how would things play out for the Lions with no Ben Johnson? Would they continue to use this rotation of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, or would they lean more on Gibbs given how well he played down the stretch? In week one, they got blown out by the Packers, and Gibbs got a lot of work late. I think that kind of masked how good his role was early on. If you remember last year, Montgomery would play the first drive every single game. Gibbs started that first drive against the Packers. They went 3 and out. Then he was back out there for the second drive and played, I believe, 2 out of 3 snaps on that one too. So 5 of the first 6 snaps went to Jahmyr Gibbs. Didn't do a ton with it, but he was out there quite a bit. In the second game against the Bears, they blew them out, so they didn't have to use him a whole lot. But his usage in that game was still really good. He had 104 yards from scrimmage in that game. The snap rate for Gibbs was pretty good once again as well, sitting at 57%. His average last year was around 52%. So once you account for the fact that he did sit out some snaps late because they were blowing out the Bears, that's a pretty good role. So I think the role for Jahmyr Gibbs is better now than it was last year. He's right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. This number for rushing plus receiving yards keeps ticking up. It was 85.5. It was 86.5 when I started this segment. It is now 87.5. I do still think that number is enticing, especially when you consider the Ravens haven't been amazing against the run so far this year. They've also got some injuries up front. Kyle Van Noy, Nnamdi Madubuike, both going to miss this game. So that could potentially allow the Lions to be pretty efficient on the ground as well. With Gibbs, given that I do think that his overall role is undervalued, I think the best route to go here is the alt market, because again, outdoor team or indoor team going outdoors, there's some risk there. So I want to take a smaller bet and get a bigger return should I wind up being right. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook Gibbs to get 100 plus yards from scrimmage is plus 144, down from plus 154 earlier on today. I do still think that is a value as things stand. So I'm going to take Jahmyr Gibbs, 100 plus yards from scrimmage, plus 144 at FanDuel Sportsbook. He did this in 7 out of 13 games before David Montgomery's injury last year. Did it last week as well. So I'll take Gibbs plus 144 to get us 100 plus yards in scrimmage, given the Ravens injuries and the role change I think that he is getting for this year. The other player who has had a really impressive role to start off this year is Zay Flowers. And I want to buy into him as well. Flowers is someone who's always been good and heavily utilized when he's been healthy, but hasn't always been healthy. The Ravens have been at times a pretty run-heavy teams. It's kind of masked how good his role is. When we look at him, his baseline prop is 69.5 yards. I also want to go towards the alt market here, because again, there are worlds in which the Ravens don't have to throw the ball very much. And again, that does present some risk for a guy like Flowers, where if they do decide to bottle things up, he's not going to get you 100 plus yards, but he could get there for sure. And that's why we're getting plus 270 for Flowers to get 100 plus yards. And this is a mark he's gotten to once in 2 games this year. He got there 5 out of 17 games last year. So if you look at him, tossing out his rookie year, over the past 2 years, he has gotten there at 6 out of 19 games, including a couple where he left early due to injury, which means he has hit this at a 32% rate. The implied odds of plus 270 are 27%. But this is also potentially a more competitive script than what we get the Ravens in typically, which is good. There are not very high wins for this game, and there's no Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews hasn't earned a lot of targets so far this year. We know Rashad Bateman isn't really that kind of guy either. And as a result, we've seen Flowers earn a 43% target share this year, averaging 4 deep targets per game. That is a really, really good roll. Now, again, there are a lot of paths to disappointment, which is why I want to go towards the alt market instead. But we are safeguarding ourselves here. We are putting a smaller bet on this at plus 270 than we would going the baseline number. And we're getting a bigger payoff should this game be competitive and Flowers maintain the role that he's had early on this year for this offense. So Zay Flowers, 100 plus yards is plus 270. I think that's a pretty solid bet and one that I do like at FanDuel Sportsbook for tonight. So that's Zay Flowers, 100 plus yards as well to Gibbs. Gibbs plus 144, Flowers at plus 270. The other player whose role may be a bit undervalued entering this game is one that's a bit speculative, but I think it's speculative for good reason. It's because the coaches have said they want to get this guy more involved, and he has given them reason to think exactly that. That's Isaac TeSlaa, who has looked awesome, both in the preseason and through the first 2 games this year. Similar to Flowers, I do not want the baseline number for Isaac TeSlaa because he hasn't played a lot of snaps so far this year. Played just garbage time in week 1 and a 29% snap rate last week. So if he keeps that role, we don't want to buy into Isaac TeSlaa props. But there's a path to him having a better role. And again, we can swing for the fences as opposed to taking a baseline number where, we can be wrong pretty often. If he hits, he can hit in a pretty big way. So I want to go to TeSlaa, 25 plus receiving yards at plus 172. As mentioned, just a garbage time in week 1, 29-yard pass in week number 2 while playing a 29% snap rate. But the important thing is that TeSlaa ran 11 routes total. 10 of those came in the first half when that game was competitive. So he's around half the dropbacks, 10 out of 21 dropbacks in the first half of that game. Since then, they said they want to get him more involved, and this is a good spot to do so, where they are on the road as underdogs against a very good Ravens team. If the Lions do fall behind, I think there's a pretty good chance we see TeSlaa flirt with this number. And again, he's getting downfield work, which means a 25-plus yard prop, he could potentially get there in just one play. So I do not want a baseline number here for TeSlaa. He's around 15.5 receiving yards as his baseline. I don't think that's a good bet. I think that if we're going to go towards a guy who gets downfield targets and has a very volatile role, we want to go towards the alt market. And that means taking TeSlaa 25 plus yards plus 172 at FanDuel Sportsbook as our third bet for today. So the 3 bets that I like in this game, Isaac TeSlaa, 25 plus receiving yards at plus 172. We'll take Zay Flowers, 100 plus yards at plus 270. And Jahmyr Gibbs, 100 plus rushing plus receiving yards. That is plus 144 at FanDuel Sportsbook. And that number continuing to move, but do still like it as things stand. As far as an SGP for tonight's game, I want to buy into those 3 players and the roles that they have. Now, I mentioned with like the single bets, the standalone bets, I wanted to go towards the alt markets to give myself more upside should I wind up being wrong. If we're going to SGP this thing, I don't mind taking the safer route there and taking the baseline props on these guys because then I am still getting upside and I'm having a smaller bet size and safeguarding myself should their roles not be amazing. If you were to go with the alt markets that we talked about, it'd be like 18-1 or so on those guys. Let's go with the baseline numbers instead and see where that gets. Zay Flowers over 69.5 receiving yards. We'll take Isaac TeSlaa at 15.5. That's at minus 114. And then we'll toss in the Jahmyr Gibbs rushing plus receiving number. 87.5 is a baseline number there. That grades out to plus 498 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Again, if you want to be really fun, you want to have, do a smaller bet and have some fun, I think you could go with the alt markets and parlay those together. Again, kind of safeguarding yourself against the volatility in these guys, but they have longer odds for a reason. That's how betting works. So I think that if you're going to SGP it up, I don't mind going with the baseline numbers there, which is Zay Flowers, 69.5 receiving yards over TeSlaa over 15.5 receiving yards and Gibbs over 87.5 receiving yards as well. I think that does work. You get plus 498 the payout for that 3-leg same game parlay for tonight's game. But overall, like I said, pretty fun night to dabble in those alt markets, take some shots on some guys who we think that have rules that are better than what their betting odds are implying right now. Do come with a lot of risk. We can safeguard against that risk by taking smaller bet sizes and getting longer odds on those bets. That is all that we have here for today at covering the spread. Once again, back again tomorrow. We're going to go game by game through the entire Week 4 NFL slate, breaking down my models, spread, and total predictions, and laying out early week bets that I like for this week. You can find that on the Covering the Spread podcast feed and on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. If you got any questions for me, I am on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. I am on Threads at Jim.Sannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets on Monday Night Football. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to preview Week 4. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.